We will be live at Giants training camp next Thursday, August 3rd. Camp begins for the G-Men at the end of the week. Giants, Jets, Bills, Patriots are regional teams of interest. Judy Battista, NFL Network and NFL.com reporter, joins us here. From what I understand, fresh off vacation. That's always nice. Back and ready to roll. Good morning, Judy. Rodger Weiland, along with Chris Honorado on ESPN Radio in Albany.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
I'm good. How was your vacation?
It was lovely, thanks.
Yeah,
but now back to training camp. I'm flying out today, so all systems go.
Where does your training camp tour take you first?
I am going to Jacksonville to see our old friend Tom Coughlin first. They report tomorrow, so I'm flying out tonight, and then I go to Indianapolis, and then I come back, relatively close to home. I'll do Jets and Giants, hit the Jets and Giants once each day. Then I go to Foxborough for the Patriots, and then I'll, hit the Eagles, the sort of close range ones.
Hey, Judy, I know you don't go into a different time zone, but you are entering Coughlin time zone. So when you get off the plane, do you change the watch?
Believe me, after years of covering Tom Coughlin at the Giants, I will be early when I get there tomorrow. You better believe it.
Well, you make sure you tell TC that we ask about him in Albany and that Rodger said hello. We got to know him fairly well because they trained here for 16 years,
right?
And we covered him in 2 Super Bowls. So he's a good guy. Wish him the best of luck. Will Jacksonville be any good this year?
Well, look, it goes without saying, it all depends on, is Blake Bortles what he was last year, which is not a good thing, or is he what he showed earlier, which had some promise? They've got a lot of young talent, which is what happens when you draft high in the draft year after year after year. They've got a lot of young talent on the team, but they've got to put it together, and so much of it is going to depend on Bortles. Certainly, if the feeling is if they needed, sort of more discipline and that kind of thing, Tom Coughlin and Doug Marrone are certainly the people who can do that to your team. So that part should be taken care of. But everything comes down to Blake Bortles. And, back in March at the owners' meeting, I saw Tom and I asked him, what do you need to see from Blake Bortles to convince you he's your franchise quarterback going forward? And he said, wins. So it's all out there for Blake Bortles. You got to win games to win Tom Coughlin over. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Coughlin will do a great job. I root for Coughlin. Big fan, and we got a lot of Doug Marrone fans up here too, coaching in Syracuse, and I'm really not sure exactly why he left Buffalo. There's a lot of preseason predictions out there. I know the USA Today came out with all of their win-loss totals on teams, and I've seen more than one say the New England Patriots are going to go and run the table 16-0. Are you in that corner?
I don't know about 16-0, but I certainly think they're the best team in the NFL. 16-0 is hard, as we know from the years they did do it. It's hard. And they have to play the Texans, who should be better depending on who their quarterback is. They have teams on their schedule. Having said that, they were the best team in the league last year, and they got better this offseason. They really put their foot on the gas when they, went into the portion of the year that concentrates on personnel. They got a lot of weapons for Tom Brady, which, for everybody else in the league, they must be rolling their eyes like, you got to be kidding. You got to give Tom Brady more weapons. But I don't have any doubt that they're the team to beat, no question about it. But, 16-0 is tough. And I also wonder, how they're going to manage Brady. He's 40. Obviously, he's playing like he's 30. But, does Belichick feel like maybe he has to manage him differently, maybe not keep him in, late season games as long as he has in the past, give him some rest to keep him fresh for January? I don't know. But those are all kinds of questions that would go into the 16-0 formula.
NFL.com and NFL Network reporter Judy Battista with us here on 104.5 The Team ESPN Radio. Judy, Rodger and I both believe the Giants also improved in the offseason with the addition of a guy like Brandon Marshall especially, and now we're hearing a lot of good things about Evan Ingram, who they drafted tight end in the first round. The offensive line, maybe still a question mark, maybe the running game as well, but where would you put the ceiling on the Giants? I think a lot of people last year thought they had a deep postseason run in them. Do you think that's possible again this year?
I do. I think it's more possible this year than last year. Last year, there were so many questions going into the season about the defense, and then the defense was fabulous. The offense should be markedly better because, last year it felt like it was Eli to Odell, and it had to be Eli to Odell. There was really nothing else you could count on when you really needed the yardage. He's going to have a lot more options this year. Brandon Marshall, let's face it, is a big target. He's only one season removed from his really great season at the Jets, and that was with Ryan Fitzpatrick, taking nothing away from Ryan Fitzpatrick that one season he had with the Jets. But, Eli Manning is a different level of quarterback here. Evan Ingram should be a beast. And don't forget Sterling Shepard. He sort of gets lost in the conversation. So Eli's going to have a lot of weapons. The offensive line is a question. They are convinced Eric Flowers is going to be improved. Obviously, they have to be right because they haven't done much to help the offensive line. So I think there's certainly the possibility of a deep run here. This is a really talented Giants team. They certainly are a playoff caliber team, and I certainly think they have the chance to win the NFC East. And getting a home playoff game would be a help.
I am concerned about the offensive line, though, and I thought they would maybe do more to address the O-line. But if you listen to Ben McAdoo, he sounds pretty confident that this offensive line is going to be improved and be better. And when you ask him about Eric Flowers, he says his career is still on the right track, and he has gotten better, and he will be a better player this season. So I guess we'll just have to hold Ben McAdoo accountable for what he is saying about his offensive line.
Yeah, Jerry Reese clearly thinks that the offensive line is going to be okay because they were not active in trying to, overhaul it. They've committed a lot of money. Last year, we all know the exorbitant amount of money they committed to the defense, and then they got pieces this year. They got Brandon Marshall, not on a massive deal, but they have put pieces in place that make you think they must think the offensive line is serviceable enough that you don't have to address it because they have been aggressive in addressing other parts of the team. If you're a Giants fan, you just have to hope they're right, that the offensive line is good enough. And certainly giving Eli more weapons so that Eli doesn't have to stand back there and just wait and hope that Odell gets open, which is what it sort of seemed like plays went through last year. I think we all sort of talked about this. It looked predictable a little bit last year. He should have a much better array of plays at his disposal this year because he's got a much better level of talent to go to.
Judy, what would you put a win-loss total on for the Jets this season?
Oh, God. Wow. Look, again, everything depends on who the quarterback is and what they decide. Does Christian Hackenberg come out of training camp with the job? I'm not even sure that's fair to Christian Hackenberg, to be honest, because I don't know how you evaluate a young quarterback like Hackenberg with, nobody around him. There is a real lack of talent on this team, a real lack of experience. If they win 5 games this year, I think that is you have to count that as a tremendous season given what they've got. There was a talent deficit last year and then they got rid of a lot of talent. So, the 5 is the ceiling in my mind.
So we did a little bit of research. Actually, Chris Honorado did some research, and I think it's Wikipedia says.
You never know what's true and what isn't out on the internet.
Let's ask Judy if this is true. That you ask Herm Edwards the question that led to his "you play the game to win the game" rant that we've all heard and seen 1,000 times from Herman Edwards. Is that true, Judy?
That is accurate. Yes, I asked the question, and he went on his rant, and I'm sure I was just looking at him like, "What the heck are you doing?"
So do you remember exactly how it was phrased that set him off?
Yes. Yeah, I said to him, because I think they had lost 3 or 4 games in a row. And so I said to him, do you have to talk to your team about not giving up on the season? not tanking, but like, do you have to talk to your team about like still playing hard and not giving up on the season? And that's what launched into you play to win the game. And I later, they went to the playoffs this year, right? That year they turned it around and had the great run. And he told me, as they were getting ready for the playoffs, he later told me that his wife, that night when he went home after the rant, said, "Were you yelling at Judy?"
That's great.
And he said to his wife, "Judy knows what I was doing."
Right. Man. That is a coach not telling his players and yet still telling his players to not give up on the season.
Right. The media. No question about it.
Judy, have you shared a few laughs with Herman since then on that topic?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Of course we have. Yeah, yes, very much so.
That's great. That's
defining moment. Because, remember they did a beer commercial based on that, right? They used that snippet. And I said to him, like, am I getting a cut of your proceeds from the beer commercial? How does this work,
You should.
And
yes.
And one recommendation to Giants fans, and Judy, I know you'll remember this well, and I do certainly because it allowed us, Rodger and I, to cover the Giants in the Super Bowl. But if you're a Giants fan, if you're a football fan, if you're a journalist, go back to 2012, read Judy's piece, which was then in the New York Times, about the Giants' overtime victory over the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I remember it being praised then, but it still is good today, about writing under deadline in a game where so many strange things happened. It's a terrific piece.
Thank you. What I remember about that game, it was at the old Candlestick Park, and it was pouring, if you remember that game, pouring, and there was water dripping on my computer because the old Candlestick Park was by then kind of a dump, and there was water coming into the press box dripping on everybody's computers, and we all thought, like, are our computers going to work when we get back up from the locker room? And then running into Peyton Manning in this narrow hallway. That was the year he was hurt, so he was at the playoff game. Running into Peyton in the hallway outside the Giants locker room, being like, "What are you doing here?" Like, it was just such a bizarre, surreal, and then they won the game. Very strange.
Judy, always a pleasure spending a few minutes with you. We look forward to your reports, NFL Network, NFL.com, and glad you had a nice vacation, and now you will settle in for a long, but I'm sure fun season.
Well, I hope it's a fun season, but thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Judy.
Good to talk to you.